started work and you were actually losing money, you were subsidised by your parents to start to get a skill.
Yeah.
These are things you need to recognise, right? That if that's what you want to do, they're the kind of 2 buses and a taxi. They're the kind of commitments that you have to make.
I decided kind of at an early age, to much of the dismay of my father, to leave school at 16, and I was left with a stack of CVs in my hometown, dropped off by my mum, and said, "Go find a job."
So we're back in the studio, another Driven Minds podcast episode. This is where we talk to successful business people and entrepreneurs that sit behind the businesses that we know here in Dubai. And we ask them questions about how they got to where they got to and what is it that made them success. And they can share those secrets with us. And this morning, or actually it's now this afternoon, I'm delighted to welcome Chris Bull, who's one of the directors at F1rst Motors. Chris, welcome to the pod.
Thank you very much.
So you've obviously watched all the episodes so far. We were just going through the names of the people that have engaged this podcast with us. But what we like to do is, firstly, we like to talk about you as a child. We'd like to understand where you went to school, what motivated you. You've already said you spent most of your life in automotive, so I think we know where we're going to go with this one. But it's always good to go back in time. And just so you know, for those watching, Chris is from the UK, so we may have some UK sense of humour jokes here, but
no slang.
No slang.
Yeah,
no slang.
We'll keep the slang to a minimum.
We'll keep it slangless. Okay, Chris, so tell us, what was Chris like at school?
Well, I mean, I left at 16, so that tells you a lot before we begin. But I think from an early age, much like any young child, I guess, I was interested in football. I was interested in F1. I could never make it as a footballer. I never made it as an F1
did you try
driver.
as a footballer?
No.
Okay.
I was never good enough to even
Right.
try. So, but yeah, I think as a child, you always wanted to either be a footballer or an F1 driver. Neither of those were achievable for me, unfortunately. But I grew up, watching Top Gear, watching Fifth Gear, learning about cars, watching the Formula One, having a huge passion for automotive, obviously usually for high-end automotive as a child. But I decided kind of at an early age, to much of the dismay of my father, to leave school at 16. And I was left with a stack of CVs in my hometown, dropped off by my mum, and said, "Go find a job."
Good old mum.
So,
and where was hometown?
So I was born and raised in Essex.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
So
I won't tell you the town
Ford.
I was born, unfortunately.
Land of Ford.
Yes, yeah, very
All
much
right.
so.
So
Yeah.
do you think that was a part of the influence?
I don't think so. No, I think Jeremy Clarkson had a huge involvement in probably my automotive career. But
But yeah, there were the fast Fords that were going around, and they were pretty cool.
yeah, they were. And I think, I mean, the town that I was kind of brought up in and around, I was from around kind of Chelmsford,
Right.
Bishop Stortford, kind of Hearts
Yeah.
Essex border. There was a lot of kind of, Focus RS and ST and all that kind of stuff. But for me, I was, like I said, dropped off into my kind of neighboring town and said, "Look, go find a job." So devised a CV, dropped it into every single car garage I could find, and was very fortunate to have been picked up by probably the best one of that location, which was a private Porsche homologator, similar to Singer from the US.
Yeah.
So kind of taking air-cooled Porsche, which is pre-1999, stripping them down to bare chassis, rebuilding them with modern engine, running gear, sat-nav, leather, new gearbox, etc., etc. So I joined as an apprentice at 16, fulfilled my apprenticeship there. I was doing car washing one day. Once I got my license, I was driving one car to another, a coach builder or a sprayer or whoever, learning all different parts of the automotive industry at 16 years old. So
Why did they pick you?
I have no idea. I'll be honest, I really don't know. I was enthusiastic young kid that was worried about going home to a severe stern talking to by my dad that I'd left school, and he's an accountant by trade, let's say, and was very much, university, which unfortunately for a child that didn't really listen in school, didn't pay much attention, and ultimately ended up leaving. I was kind of forced into that trade, and was worried about going home and getting a stiff talking to. So, so that's where I ended up.
What were you like at school though? I mean, you didn't listen, but what else? More into the sports side of it than the academic?
Well, to be honest with you, as much as I am very much into sports now and have been for most of my life, as a kid, I wasn't hugely sporty. I was probably the one that you can say had the least amount of talent, but I really, really wanted to be good
Right.
at anything I kind of put my mind to. But I always never had the most talent. You know, you see these kids in playing football who are just gifted. I was never ever that person in any kind of sport. I did love the water, did love swimming and all those kind of things. But as for academically in school, I just never really paid a huge amount of attention, which was, you know, I suppose a detriment at the time. But it just was never something I was hugely interested in. I always wanted to go out and experience things and learn, but in a more of a practical way, you can say. And then I kind of fell into a position at that age, and you know, I loved working. I loved going to work and understanding and learning, and especially when in that environment where at that dealership it was just 911s and, you know, weird and wonderful cars, from Mika Hakkonen's ex Mitsubishi rally car through to Shelby Daytona Cobra and all these different kind of weird and wonderful things. So I loved it the second I set foot in it. So,
do you think your life would have been very different if you hadn't have ended up going straight to that company?
I definitely think it would have had a different impact in how I viewed the motor trade or the automotive business. Yeah. Because it made me fall in love with automotive. If I had have gone and worked for Citroen, no disrespect to that brand, but like, I don't know whether I would have had that same passion.
Okay. Well, maybe that's what they saw in you then at the interview process. Maybe
Perhaps.
that's what it was.
I'd have to call and ask.
Yeah, you should definitely call and ask. Maybe you were curious. I think, you know, it's funny when I've interviewed most of the people on this podcast. Don't take this the wrong way, but most have not done particularly well academically. Most have at some stage gone, you know what? I'm more practical. I want to get out there and I want to get in the business world. And that does seem to be a running theme in most people I interview, and me as well, to be fair. So
I think it makes a difference in you as a person. If you are kind of academically driven, I just feel like for me, I always viewed life as experience is much more important than a grade on a piece of paper. And that's not detrimenting high school, university. 100%. If you want to go and be a doctor, there is clearly a path for that, right?
100%.
And that goes through going to university, going through the grades and all those kind of things. I think if you want to go and, again, be a secondhand car salesman, which is what I was, really, you don't need to go to school for that. And I think that having life experience in doing that position far outweighs any kind of grade that you could have achieved at high school or university.
So you sat mum and dad down and he said, I'm not going back to school.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
And mum went, all right, let's get your CV and post it all over town.
Yeah.
Good old mum.
Mum was really supportive. Yeah. Not that my dad wasn't, but my mum was very supportive.
Good old
in it,
mum.
Yeah,
So
she was brilliant.
She did a great job. And your dad did a great job as well. He motivated you through fear, which is always a good motivator.
Yeah.
And you came back and went, great news. I'm now this apprentice at this dealership.
Yeah.
And what was the parents' view?
Well, there's a caveat to that, to be honest with you, because the apprenticeship paid, of course, but it paid very little, as an apprenticeship does in the UK. And for full transparency, the pay was £20 a day, which is 100 dirham for those listening. But the cost to get to it, because unfortunately I lived in a rural village outside of a village in the UK, the cost was 2 buses and 1 taxi each way.
Oh, great.
So I took a bus from my house to the local town, which was Braintree. I took a bus from Braintree to a town or a village that I can't remember the name of, unfortunately. And from there, I had to take a taxi to the location because it was in a kind of a farmland area. So that was £25 a day. So good old mum was very kind enough to give me £10 on top of my 20, which allowed me to pay £5 for food.
Good old mum.
So and mum and dad, of course. But I think after I presented them that, there was no hesitation. They were very supportive. Yeah.
Right. Did dad know about the cash from mum?
No, I think she slipped out of his wallet every day.
He'll know about it now.
Thanks. Sorry.
All right, great. So you do your apprenticeship, and what happens at the end of that? How long did that last?
It was a year.
Right.
So completed the apprenticeship. At this point, I'm now approaching kind of being. I was just turning 18. Had gone through getting my license and everything as a child. Gone through a first year of driving where I got to experience driving all sorts of different cool and wonderful cars. I don't know how they let me drive those cars at that age, at 17 years old, freshly licensed.
But they have insurance to do that.
I honestly, to this day, I have no idea.
Okay, well,
but I don't know.
good fun.
Let's hope they're not listening. And then from there, I went on and worked for Mini, a part of BMW.
Yeah.
I did 4 years with BMW and Mini.
Yeah.
Enjoyed that massively. From Mini transitioned into BMW through after you kind of gain a bit of seniority and understanding. And from that point, I heard of in the kind of grapevinely, you can say, of an opening day for Ferrari.
Right.
So at this point, I'm reaching 21, or maybe 3 years with BMW. So I'm reaching 21, and I heard of an interview open day. So rocked up, suited and booted, and kind of pestered everyone in the room to try and make myself the most noticed person in the room, because that is part of the open day. You've got employees working there. You've got the sales manager, the general manager, the dealer principal, all of those things. By pure luck, or you can say grit, I'm not sure how, I got sat down in front of the GM and he said, "Look, great news. Yeah, we really like you, but you're not 21 yet." I said, "Well, great news. I'm 21 in, I think it was 3 or 4 months." So he said, "Okay, when you're 21, call me." So 21st birthday, morning of, "Hi, good afternoon. This is Chris. You remember you interviewed me?" He said, "Oh yeah." I said, "I'm 21 today." So he said, "Okay, fair enough. Come in." Had an interview, managed to go through and get the position, and enjoyed 3 years with Ferrari, or Maserati to begin with, and then Ferrari.
Right. Okay.
Which was an amazing time. Made me kind of fall back in love as well after BMW. Not that BMW made me fall out of love with automotive, but it's not the same, you know. And
I was going to ask, I mean, you know, selling Minis to start off with and then BMWs, I mean, was there passion in it for selling that, or was it?
To be honest with you, it was the early stage of my career, kind of understanding how real automotive worked. And that's not to push down on the previous company, the first company where I did an apprenticeship, but to really understand how a PLC, because of course initially it was a company called Elms, which was taken over by Group 1 Automotive, which is a large conglomerate in the UK and the US. But to understand the real corporate structure of an automotive business, to understand the promotional ladder that you have to go through, to understand the targets that you have to achieve. You know, the company I was with in the very beginning of the career, it was just a family business that developed from a passion project. Whereas going to a PLC and understanding, okay, this is real work. This is a real PLC company. You know, this is your wage slip. This is your HR system. This is your CRM system, your DMS. This is how you order cars from BMW Germany, so on and so forth.
And the training was good at BMW, wasn't it?
It was fantastic. It's probably the best. You can argue Ferrari is very good, but that's more on the customer experience side of things. But from a training and development perspective, BMW is, I think, one of the best. Yeah.
I assume there are elements of the BMW training that you now install in your team today, do you?
Yes. Yeah, you could definitely say there's parts of it, although it might not be knowing, you know, firsthand now that I'm really instilling that, but it's definitely parts of that you take, you know. It's always good to take certain parts of managers you've worked for, directors you've worked for, and businesses that provide training, and take all of that and try to make the best version of yourself, right? And we don't get it right, you know. We're all humans. So.
So here's Chris. He's wearing his suit. He's 21 years old. He's in the Ferrari dealership.
Yeah.
Day one.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I thought, this is cool.
I've smashed it.
I actually, on my first day, one of the sales guys in Ferrari, I was in Maserati when I first joined, and one of the sales guys in Ferrari had to go and fill up an F12.
Right.
And I remember it like it was yesterday. It was white with red interior. And he's like, "I've just got to go to the petrol." I said, "Oh, can I come with you?" You know, like this little child running around yapping at everyone's ankles. And yeah, from that moment, I was just like, this is cool. I want to be working for Ferrari. And luckily got to that point, you know.
Come on, what's the first Ferrari you sold? You must remember it.
That was an F12. And then soon after, a 458 Spec Charlie.
Right.
And then from then, it's a lot of it, as you know now, especially in the last kind of 8-9 years, Ferrari has become much more of an order bank taking from a new car perspective. Used cars, obviously, you do have, but they're less and less. But the new car is very much like taking the order and forward basing it for 2 years' time whenever the car turns up.
How did you feel about that first sale?
Um,
Were you nervous writing out the paperwork?
no, to be honest, like,
No?
and that's not in like a cocky way or
Yeah.
however you want to perceive it. It was just, I was just wanting to do the job and make sure that I was probably nervous in the sense of I wanted to make sure everything was correct.
Yeah.
But I always felt, I think from the very early days where I was with that private independent dealer homologator for Porsche, I dealt with kind of, you can say, high net worth individuals, VIP customers, that kind of stuff. And I'd kind of been around that. I'd been very fortunate to be around that most of my life and understand how those people work and the certain interactions you have to have with those people and the way you have to explain things. And I felt very at peace with that. And that's really from that I built, I think, from Ferrari on a really good understanding of how to understand and, network and kind of filter through those kind of ultra high net worth people and understand what makes them tick. And everyone's different and everyone interprets information differently. And just to kind of roll through that as a part of my career for 2-3 years and really understand it really, I think, helped a lot in the future.
How was mum and dad at this stage?
At that point, they were pretty pleased.
Were they?
Yeah.
Were you the talk of the dinner party, were you?
Yeah,
Chris works
you
for
can say that,
Ferrari
yeah.
now,
Well, going from the dropout from school,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
definitely, yeah.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so how long were you at Ferrari for?
It's around 3 years.
Okay, and
Yeah,
then
give
what
or
pulled
take.
you away from Ferrari?
So I kind of gone through that point and transitioned from Maserati to Ferrari. Gone through what they call senior salesman kind of status. And then at the end of that, I'd kind of sat back and thought, well, I'm now, I think, 24. And I was like, well, I want to go into management. I don't want to, what I knew was that the kind of closing point in my turning point in my brain, you can say, was that I didn't want to sell cars for the rest of my life. And that's not a degrading point on selling cars. But just for me personally, I wanted to excel through management. And I always had this vision of being, we call it in the UK dealer principal, right?
Mm-hmm.
I always had this vision of by the time I turned 30, I wanted to be dealer principal. So I had that kind of idea in my mind now that I'd found a career I really wanted to do and I loved. So I said, well, look, I love working for Ferrari. There's nowhere you can go from Ferrari. It's the greatest brand, in my opinion, still to this day in the world. And you didn't have the likes of Koenigsegg and Pagani back then, 8 years ago or so, that were really kind of front and center. So I said, well, look, I need to go and I need to go into management. So I'm not going to be manager at Ferrari that quickly. What do I do to get there? So I said, well, I have to take one step back in brand, let's say, and take 2 steps forward in position. So I transitioned from there and I joined a company called Saxton 4x4 as sales manager and was tasked, you can say, at that age with running a sales team, which was at any given time between 20 to 25 salespersons.
This is your first time in management?
Yeah.
And you certainly got 20 salespeople working for you.
What
was that like?
I still don't know how I got that position, but I seem to have a knack for that. And it was pretty intense. I'm still friends with a lot of the sales guys there. In fact, I'm very, very close with a couple of them. And I still remember to this day, we joke about it when we meet up when I'm back in the UK, but I remember my first day walking in and I was, of course, come from Ferrari, right? So I was suit, shirt, tie, polished shoes, briefcase. You can imagine, right? And walking into a dealership that was huge in terms of volume, units. I mean, to give you an idea, I think back then when we first started, it was around when I first started, it was around 700 units in stock, selling around 300, 350 a month with 22 salespeople. And then I walked in and you kind of had all these guys sitting on the phone, and there was this bank, we were talking before, this kind of bank of tables, just 2 by 2 as far as the eye can see. And you could hear like a pin drop and everyone went, okay, this is the new sales manager. And they all went, what? And I kind of went, oh, hi everyone. I went, sat down at my desk, and to be honest, from then, like, the rest is history. But I remember one guy, one of my best friends now, turning around and going, "Who the hell is this kid?" And overcoming those objections, right, and having to become, at that point, you can say leader. There was, of course, owners of the business that were very much involved in the business. So I wasn't absolutely fully that from the beginning, but becoming that and having to kind of educate those people and run through and change things, it was quite demanding, very much so, especially at that age.
100%. And you were going from a prestige brand to volume.
Yeah.
And that's a big change in itself.
Yeah.
And you were going from being a salesperson to being a sales leader of 20 odd people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
we're sink or swim, isn't it? Right.
Obviously you were swimming. That sounds of it.
I tried to, yeah, definitely at the beginning. And I think, the only way out is through, and you just have to keep persevering. And I think that taught, you can say, a lot of resilience in order to be able to understand that, yeah, okay, I am going to be judged, and yeah, okay, I'm going to make wrong decisions, but let's just do it. One of my favorite quotes to this day is "Pressure is a privilege," and I believe that in everything in life. And I think that I look back then and think, yeah, that was a lot of pressure, but what a privilege to be able to be in that position.
Yeah.
And just to be able to be helped and coached and guided through it. And it was a great business. So.
Yeah. And what did you take from there? I mean, what were the learnings you took from that switch?
You can say, I think mass managing that amount of people, because there was between 18 to 25 salespeople at any given time. There was 6 business managers, and then we had 5 front of house reception staff, along with the other parts of the business. But to be able to mass manage and be on top of, as you can imagine, having that many salespeople, having that many cars sold a month, 350, and then how many inquiries you get from that to filter through, right? And you guys will know in your business the amount of volume of inquiries on 700 cars a month in stock, to be able to filter that. And we had an amazing digital inquiry sales team, which had a manager of its own looking after that kind of reported into the sales team, and fed those inquiries down, pre-qualified them and everything. But to be able to understand that mass management and inquiry management, you had to have a really good CRM system.
Yeah.
You had to have a team to be able to kind of go through all of those, make sure that you didn't miss an inquiry. Because the amount of volume of inquiries you're receiving, imagine if 1 in every 5 or 1 in every 10 is getting missed.
Yeah.
That opportunity becomes, you're talking 10, 20, 30 cars a month you can miss in terms of sold units. So it's a big difference.
Yeah, going from Ferrari to Saxton, obviously that's a massive difference, because you probably had like 1 lead a day in Ferrari, and then suddenly you're getting thousands of leads a day.
Yeah.
How quickly did you realise, my God, these leads are important? This is where I've got to make sure I'm all over this.
Yeah, I think the most important part of that whole business was not the sales team or the business manager team. It was the digital inquiry desk team.
Yeah.
And we had a very young, talented digital inquiry manager that had a team of 5 or 6 guys who were it was quite a good thing, because it was the way that they set the business up was fascinating, because you had this kind of almost natural transition of training salespeople, because you join as a digital inquiry sales exec. You learn, okay, hi, Mr. Customer, yeah, you're interested in the Range Rover Sport, because it was a premium garage. It wasn't, again, don't want to degrade any brand. It wasn't Ford Focuses. It was Range Rover, Audi, Mercedes, BMW, Tesla, so on and so forth. And so you had this kind of natural progression of these digital inquiry agents, sales execs, understanding, hi, Mr. Customer, you're interested in Range Rover Sport. Okay, great. Where are you located? And we had people from all over the UK buying a car over the phone, coming down, collecting it and driving it away. And some were funding those cars, of course. So that was incorporating how to do the finance, how to propose it, how to pay it out, how to then deliver the car. So having that kind of, you're interested in this car. Okay, fine. Where are you located? Okay, well, I'm in Glasgow. Okay, great. Well, subject to viewing, is everything okay for you? Yeah, do you know what? I want to be at £500 a month. Okay, well, £500 a month at the moment, we're at 525. If I can close it at 500, do we have your business? Yes. Okay, so your assumptive closing. We're then taking a deposit over the phone. Okay, great. We're going to book you an appointment Saturday. We're going to come at 10 a.m. So you got the whole day. You check the car, and then we can register the car, tax the car back in those days, and we can deliver the car to you, or you can take the car away that same day.
Yeah.
And we can have enough time to pay the finance out. Understanding that whole sales process from the digital inquiry agent to the salesperson to the business manager, then to the exit of the car leaving the business fully paid. It was it was like this huge machine
Yeah.
that you had to understand all the workings of. But then it was a great training tool because everyone was involved in the process the whole way through.
Yeah.
So everyone knew how the business worked. And it meant that it was just a very seamless process. Of course, it doesn't come without problems.
100%.
And on that volume of cars, it can become an issue.
It's funny, isn't it? I mean, they were probably ahead of their time, weren't they, Saxton, really? Because if you look at Kazoo tried to do this and call it a digital business, but failed miserably with millions of investment.
Yeah, I think you can probably say the closest thing from a UK perspective was Big Motoring World.
Yeah.
If you remember that, I mean, that's a huge business.
Yeah.
That was, I think, the model in which they take the business on, and then they expanded it to more of a premium prestige version. Because Big Motoring World, they did do those premium cars, but they also did the kind of, more economical segment.
Yeah.
Whereas it was very much geared towards, we want to do cars that are £20,000 through to £100,000, from a Range Rover SVR to Discovery, and that really worked for them because they would price the cars so aggressively in the market. There was no negotiation,
right?
Not a single penny, and I mean that because my parents bought a car from Saxton, and there wasn't a penny off. It's minimal margin. This is the price. Take it or leave it, right? In the politest way. And so people knew it, and they went, okay, well, yeah, your Range Rover Sport is £55,000. Land Rover selling the same car for £60,000. I'll buy your car.
Yeah.
And that was it. And because there was such volume, the finance side of it, which is a big thing in the UK, maybe not so much here, but definitely in the UK, the finance rates that they were able to get with the lender that they had, because there was so much funding in terms of volume, revenue funding, the rates they got were better than any approved dealer, any Land Rover approved, BMW approved, any of this stuff.
Very good. So how did you make the move over then to Dubai? What was the trigger point that sent you over here?
You can say probably a lot of the same people's answer, which is COVID.
Is that when you came over? Was
I came over in 2021.
Yeah.
My father actually lived in Dubai from 2006-7 through to 2017-18.
Oh, right, okay.
So I'd visited Dubai a lot as a young child, and from 2004 when I came on holiday the first time through till when he left. So I knew Dubai very well, but I had never ever thought about moving here, never thought about living away from the UK. COVID-19 happened. Our various different things in the business changed from a financial perspective in terms of your salaries and everything. Also, to the hours were still just as demanding. So I was sitting at home one Christmas and went, don't really like, not what I'm doing. I don't not like the industry, but I don't really like the place I'm at. I feel a bit stagnated. So I decided to kind of up and leave, and I'd been approached actually about a position, not in Dubai, but in Qatar 2 years before that, when I just joined Saxton.
Right.
And I said, no, just got a big job, not my right time, etc., etc., etc. And then decided, well, look, I'm going to make the move now. So I called my dad. I said, look, might look at this opportunity in Qatar again if there's availability. He said, look, son, Qatar's not the place for you. You need to come to Dubai if you're going to move anywhere. So I went, okay, Dad, no problem. Looked up to try and find a job, set up a few interviews, got offered a position, moved out here, and have been here ever since.
Who was that with?
It was a company called BG. So it's an automotive after-sales manufacturing for oil and lubricants.
Oh, right. Okay.
So the kind of thesis behind it was that I wanted to get a real understanding. I mentioned before I wanted to be dealer principal by 30, and that was still kind of in the forefront of my mind. Now, naturally, a transition in any UK dealership is sales manager, after service manager, general sales manager, after sales manager, and then what always happens is the sales manager takes the DP job. Generally, as a rule of thumb, you never ever have the after sales manager go into the DP position. So I saw that and thought, well, how good would it be to have had after sales experience and sales experience in terms of management? So this was the best opportunity for me to be able to come out to Dubai. I obviously wasn't a service manager, so how can I become a service manager without any experience? So I decided to join this company, which is a fantastic business, manufacturing oil and lubricants and value-added service commodities for the service centers. So I spent 3 years traveling the GCC, selling these products into the after-sales businesses of all the OEMs in the region. And through that time, got some incredible experience traveling to all the GCC countries, Kuwait, Bahrain, Saudi, Qatar, Oman, and also further abroad. I actually went to Iraq 3 times, which was as scary as some people think. It's actually an incredible country. I experienced Baghdad, I experienced Erbil, I experienced Egypt, and all the other different places. So that was a really, really amazing time in learning more about how an after-sales business operates, because I was dealing with all the after-sales managers. So that was a kind of 3 years spent in my first 3 years in Dubai.
And then you went to, is it Auto Millennium then, is it after that?
Indeed, yeah. So Auto Millennium was 2 years, a year and a half, understanding PPF, window tinting and ceramic services, but built into the back end of the business. So being a third-party supplier and provider of those services to all the main dealers in the UAE. So likes of Altair, Al Nabuda, Al Habtoor, etc., etc. So providing all those products and services into those businesses, but built in. So you would walk in and the staff would be wearing an Altair uniform, but they're working under contract with us, and providing all those services to the premium dealerships. So all the PPF that's coming out of various different businesses is actually under contract with the different companies.
I've heard I've never been. It's an amazing operation though when you go there.
It's mammoth.
Yeah, I've heard.
It's an incredible business. Again, quite similar to Saxton in the sense it's a real machine of a business. Like it's very slick, the operational side of it, and it has to be because there's so many staff. You're talking nearly 800 staff. Under contract. And the business itself is sat on 250,000 square feet of units in one location. It also has a side arm to the business, which I ended up through my tenure with them taking over a segment of that, which is where they do customization, beautification, you can call it, on the kind of mid-tier brands. So it targeted brands that didn't have an automotive sporting arm. Mercedes has AMG, BMW has M Sport, Audi has S-Line. It targeted the other brands like Kia, Hyundai, Nissan, etc., Mitsubishi, and it took their model that would be white with beige cloth, and it would then put a black pack on it. They'd put Apple CarPlay, they'd put Rolls-Royce Starlight headlining, coloured brake calipers and side steps. So if you've been in Dubai a long time, you'll have seen Mitsubishi Pajero white with a black roof, signature edition. That's Auto Millennium. So that's the kind of MO of the business, and they had a huge factory in which they did all those customizations.
Yeah, I'll have to have a walk up there at some stage and have a look around.
It's a huge facility. It's actually, I think, and I don't want to be quoted on this, but it's the biggest after-sales, aftermarket company in the GCC.
Yeah, I heard the same. How did you end up in F1rst? What was their move there?
So I'd always wanted to transition back into a showroom after I gained that experience that I'd mentioned. And I hadn't been looking at anything. I wasn't looking to make a jump. And then I was approached by a recruiter. It sounds very basic and boring, doesn't it? It's no glitz and glamour, unfortunately. But I was approached by a recruiter saying that they're looking for a sales director to join a company on Sheikh Zayed Road selling high-end cars. That was it, and that's statistically, that's how recruiters approach. They don't want to give away the name of the company, so on and so forth. And I said, okay, well, if it's on Sheikh Zayed Road, I'm pretty interested because I know what you have to do to be on Sheikh Zayed Road outside of an OEM. So my first question was, is it an OEM? Because I wanted to know maybe it's Toyota or Lexus or somewhere else. She said, it's not an OEM. I said, okay, if it's not an OEM, I'm in. Just send my CV. So she sent the CV. Came back with positive feedback. She said, okay, I can tell you the name of the company now. Company's F1rst Motors. I went, wow, okay, yeah, I'm all in. Tell me what I need to do. Went through the various interview stages and was very fortunate enough to be asked to join. And it's been an incredible journey so far.
How long have you been there for now?
Coming up to a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same question. Why do they hire you?
I think again, I had an understanding of the after sales side of things, which is something that we're building as a business at the moment. So I think there's a factor of that may have played into it. I think the pure one thing that I would put my finger on is that I love cars. That's the reason I'm in this job. I'm not okay. We all come to work for money, right? Obviously, but I love automotive. I love high-end automotive. And I think when we get more into about F1rst Motors, you will understand that the owners of the business, the chairman, they love cars. Like
Right,
they
okay.
just are obsessed about cars. And this business for them is very much born from a passion project to provide the automotive world of high-end cars in Dubai something that it's missing. And so they saw, I think, I like to believe, they saw that I had that same passion about cars, and I had the relevant experience that they can bring to that business to be able to provide a European, let's say, standard on it, which allows you to kind of understand and develop that business into a point where you can expand further. And I think they're the two key factors of it. And I was very lucky and feel privileged to be able to be there.
So you've been in Dubai for
5 years.
5 years,
Yeah.
and at first for one, sorry. So
Yes.
for 4 years. So
Yeah.
did you think when you left England to come to Dubai, you'd be working at someone like F1rst Motors?
No.
Okay.
I actually, when I was in school, you asked me at the beginning why did you join the automotive space? I remember they stood up and you are asked to present what you wanted to be when you grow up. And I stood up in front of my class and they said, okay, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I want to be a footballer. Everyone laughed. I said, no, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said, I want to be a Formula One driver. And they said, no, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I want to be a part of the biggest supercar, hypercar showroom in the world. And so I think part of that, circling back to where we are now, I feel hugely privileged to be able to be in that position and be able to kind of grow the business forward with the help of the other team.
Yeah. Well done you. Well done you. You know, it's I asked the question, what do they see in you? And, you know, having gone through your history, it sounds like even though you left school early, it sounds like you kind of knew what you needed to do to get on. You know, every move you've done has got a very good reason why you've taken that position to move on. It's well plotted out.
Yeah, I think it wasn't as well plotted out as it may seem in terms of where I knew where I kind of wanted to go next. But it was always with the thought process of what my end goal is. And it was, how do I get there with as much experience as possible?
Yeah. Of
course, in a shorter time as possible. But I think it's necessary to have the time to be able to gain the experience. And I'm nowhere near done yet, right? I mean, I still, like I said to you at the beginning, we all make mistakes, me more than most. But I think, as I said, it's sink or swim. You have to just keep making those mistakes, and hopefully, as long as you don't do the same mistake twice and you learn from them each time, then you're only going to become better, right? And I've tried to take those different parts of all the mentors and people that I've had in part of my life, in career, personal life, family, to be able to be the best person that you can be. And like I said, I'm nowhere near perfect, but we try to be the best we can every day.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, look, we always say about this podcast, it's not just an automotive podcast, right? It's for anybody who's either thinking about moving, not just to Dubai, but any country, or anyone who's already here who wants a different career, you know, because I think these stories are fascinating. And, you know, if you think that, you know, you started work and you were actually losing money, you were subsidized by your parents to start to get a skill.
Yeah.
You know, these are things you need to recognize, right? That if that's what you want to do, they're the kind of 2 buses and a taxi. They're the kind of commitments that you have to make.
Yep.
Otherwise, you don't go anywhere, regardless of how many qualifications you've got.
Yeah, of course. And I was very, very lucky to be able to be in that position where they could do that for me. And I do note that. But you also, back then, you don't think, oh, well, to do all this, I'm going to become X at X age, right?
Yeah.
Or achieve Y at Y age. It's just about being able to be, to achieve what you want to achieve at that moment in time. So.
Yeah, definitely. So now you're at F1rst Motors. Give me an idea about, you know, where you see the industry going here. How does it differ to the UK or other markets you know about? And what would you like to see this market progress into?
I think that as a business for us in this segment of the industry that we're in, we're probably one of the only dealerships that we are born out of a pure passion project, right? So we became a business because the directors or the chairman, sorry, became so passionate about cars, and they saw a gap in the market where there were some showrooms that weren't providing the level of service that they expected, and so they wanted to create that. So it's born out of pure passion. It's not born out of a business that is engaged to make money. And that sounds silly because a lot of businesses are, but that actually makes it so much more personal to them.
Yeah.
And they are so hugely involved in that part of the business and all the business every single day, considering they have other businesses that are there to generate revenue.
Yeah.
This is their baby. So I think coming to kind of answer your question, as a company, we want to be the point of difference. And I think that this industry has a lot of unfortunate stereotypes about how you can provide a certain level of service to a customer, how honest and transparent you're being with every customer. One of the key things that I always say is that we are an intermediary for the most part, and we always have a buyer, and for the most part, we have a seller. We always have a buyer, but sometimes we have a seller if it's a consignment car. And we just have to make sure that we are doing the right thing by both of those people. And the MO of the business is not to sell more cars. You know, I always ask every boss, every leader in a business, I always ask them when I join is, what does success look like? And the success for F1rst Motors is that every set of feet that walk through the front door of the showroom, they leave happy. Whether they're coming to look at a car, whether it's a 10-year-old boy who's coming to look at Ferrari for the first time, it's a grandparent who's coming around because they worked at Ford when they were in their career, or whether it's someone's coming to buy a car, or someone coming because they just love cars and they want to walk around. And we have that a lot. It's that they all leave happy. That's the be all and end all of it. It's not about trying to sell more units, more GP, more revenue. That's the last thing. And if you do all the other things right, if you create that environment where people have an amazing time, then all the other stuff comes. You know, at the end of the day, if you just look after your clients, buyer and seller, in any capacity, if you do all the right things right, and what's right here, this is what the chairman are always saying from the top down in the whole business, it's just do the right thing. And that ultimately leads to having revenue.
Yeah, it's great value to have as a business. Obviously, your existing customers know about that, but how do new customers know that you're doing this?
I think it's all through kind of an education process. For example, if a customer's walking into a showroom and there's a stereotype in Dubai about cars having paint, right? To give a case in point example, if a car is coming in, we had this maybe 2 or 3 months ago, we had a car that was in the showroom. It had the tiniest carbon fiber piece retrimmed or reworked. You would never know it. You wouldn't know it. I wouldn't know it with the naked eye. But when you get told about it and you really start to look at it, you can just notice it. Anyway, the car was on consignment. We informed the seller and we said, look, we're aware of the issue with the car. Very, very small. It's been repaired very nicely, but this is the issue. Any client that comes in expressing an interest in your car, we're going to inform them. That's the right thing to do. So, oh yeah, okay, no problem. So most people, most dealerships, and again, not bad mouthing anyone else, but we believe most dealerships would say no one would even know. So let's not say anything.
Yeah.
But the problem is on that car, there is not a number in the world of profit that we could make that would justify us not telling a client and that client going to dinner and their best friend going, oh, you just bought that car. That's the one that had the accident. Because they say accident. This much, it's still an accident, unfortunately, because that's just the wording that people are going to use. And it becomes this big thing. And a customer comes back and said, you didn't tell me. Reputation, we all know, it takes years to build and it goes in seconds. You know? So making sure that we're just doing the right thing by both clients. And we act as if we are an intermediary. And it's not about trying to buy a car as cheap as possible and sell it for the most amount of money.
Yeah. We're coming towards the end of the podcast. I've got a couple more questions.
Sure.
One would be, how do you see this market differing to the UK? I mean, do you think this is a market that's more developed than the UK or less developed?
I think it's very different, I would say, to Europe as well as the UK. In terms of, we were talking earlier about the way that people perceive value is very different here. So we were using an example earlier. If I'm selling this table, and this table is 1,000 dirhams, and another competitor has their table on the same, and it's exactly the same manufacturer, everything's identical, but their table is 1,200 dirhams. In Europe, they'll come in and go, okay, very nice table, very nice example, good price, I'll buy it, because they can see value in it. In here in Dubai, if it's 1,000 dirhams and my competitor is at 1,200, they will come in and they'll still go, what's the best price? And they will still push for a discount.
Yeah.
And we're trying to, I think, what I'd like to push towards as a business, as we think we are one of the leaders in terms of super and hypercar businesses, not only in GCC, not only in Dubai, but also we like to think in the world. And we want to be the point of difference, that we are trying to push more towards what's the real value of a product, not having to put something at a higher price, allow for some discounting, negotiation. We want to build value in every car we sell. And we understand, look, okay, this table is actually not worth 1,000 dirham. Okay, Mr. John Smith, as we would call it, has his same table on for 1,200, but I think my table's only worth 900. So I'm going to list it at 900. If I sell it for 875, fine. But I'm not going to sell it for 600.
Yeah.
Because that's the true value of the table. So why should I have to do that? And I think that, which we want to be the point of difference in terms of building value in a product. And I think that's the thing that this region doesn't have yet. It's that real person to stand up and go, you know what? I'm not going to just discount because you're asking me to. This is the value of my product. This is why, A, B, C, D. In a politest way, take it or leave it.
Yeah. Okay. So if I could give you a wish then, if I could grant you a wish, what would it be to try and make that happen faster?
Ooh, having every dealer on board to be able to have that same approach. But the problem is,
that's a challenge, isn't it?
And again, it's
I need more than one wishes, I think, to make that.
Yeah, I think back to that same point is that we're in a very privileged position, and our first thought and process is to make sure that we're doing right by our customers. And so for us to be able to turn around and go, you know what, this is the value. It's like we're not trying to push someone to buy a car from us. You know, at the end of the day, of course, we want to sell cars. But at the end of the day, we want to sell the right cars. I won't just take a car. If someone comes in tomorrow with a Ferrari, for example, and the market price is 15 million, and the customer says, oh, you can buy that car for 7. Well, okay, but that's not the value of it. Your value is 15. So I'm not going to buy it off you for 7, because I'll buy it off you today at 7. And most dealers will go, oh, yeah, amazing. Yeah, quickly, give it to me. Here's the bank transfer, or here's it, whatever. But when they go for dinner, sold my Ferrari for 7 million. What? Why did you sell it for 7 million?
Yeah.
And then, you know, it's about just doing the right thing. And I think we have to rely on a lot of people to be able to stand with us to do that.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, we make the difference that we can make in the market, and just hope that others follow suit.
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing. I think just do the right thing. I think if car dealers in the UAE just did the right thing all the time towards their customer, I think this would be an amazing used car market. I think
it's huge.
Yeah,
it really is huge, because it serves not just Dubai, UAE, it serves the whole of the GCC.
Yeah, and parts of Africa. So it's more than that.
It's a massive, it's a massive part of the industry.
Well, look, my last question then. So, you know, if I think, we kind of touched on it earlier, but if I think about your progression from this apprenticeship, or being an apprenticeship, to where you are today, fantastic journey. I'm now watching this as a podcast at home in the UK, and I'm thinking about making my move out to Dubai. What advice are you going to give me to help me on my journey based on what you've seen?
I would say, if you're already in the industry, you have to be prepared. If you want to commit to move here, you have to be prepared to take 1 step back to make 2 steps forward.
Yeah.
You won't move out here into the exact same position that you're currently in the UK for the most part, because it's a very, very different industry in so many different ways, geographically, customer centric, so many different ways, and also IT infrastructure. CRMs, DMSs, they're so less advanced here than it is in the UK. So you have to be understanding the market region for a little bit of time. It doesn't take long. a year, 18 months, 2 years for you to be able to then progress into that same position and then thereon. So you have to be prepared to take one step back, two steps forward. I would say that being on the ground here makes a difference. Employers, depending on the role that you're applying for, employers always want to see someone in the UAE already, which is a very difficult thing to ask someone to do. If I was to say to you, I don't know how long you've been in the UAE for.
7 years now.
7 years. So if you were back in the UK as an employee, and you was to say, okay, pack your stuff up, bring your family, move out here without a job, you go, no thanks, right? Because you don't know what future income you've got, family to provide for, etc., etc. But being on the ground here really stands you in further stead to be able to get that position. So if you can take that risk, be prepared for it. But I think it's a great thing to be able to be here and do what I did, when I was 16. If you want, walk around with CVs and just give them in. I know that sounds so basic, but get involved with on LinkedIn with recruiters, network, and you'll easily be able to find a position, because for the right people, there really is companies out here looking for the right people. So if you're a good person and a good employee, and you've got good experience, you will find a role here.
Yeah, okay. No, I love that advice. I especially like the advice about taking 2 steps back. I think everyone just thinks progression's always about going forwards.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And I think, if you do want to come into a different country, take on a bigger job, sometimes you've got to go backwards, learn the new skills, and then you can move forward faster.
Definitely.
So, no, that's great.
Couldn't agree more.
That is brilliant advice. Thank you very much. Well,
Welcome.
Look, it sounds like you've had a great career so far. We watch with interest about where Chris Bull goes next. But thank you very much for coming here and sharing that.
No problem at all.
Best of luck for the future.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Good stuff.